Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to an all-new Talkin Movies. As always, I'm your host, the real Geno Reynolds. And today we're going to be talking about 5 Feet Apart. I went to the quote-unquote fan event last night, which is basically, it's coming out a day early. What this movie is about, it's about a girl named Stella who has cystic fibrosis, and she's in the hospital getting her checkup and getting all fixed up and everything. They take her in for a while and make sure she's doing her meds and all that stuff. And she's in there, and there's a new kid in there doing a clinical trial. He also has cystic fibrosis, and they start to fall for each other. So I can tell over the last few years, even though there's been movies about people with diseases falling in love for years, lately, the last few years, there's been movies like Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl, which is a fantastic movie, and The Fault in Our Stars. And when a movie like that gets successful, of course, they're going to make more like it. There's some that are good, like those two, and some that are not so good, like Everything, or the one that I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head that had Bella Thorne where she couldn't be out in the sun. I mean, there's just all sorts of those movies where it's about isolation or a terminal disease where they don't think they're going to live, so what's the point of love? And so that's this kind of movie. And that's just it. It's, if you enjoy those type of movies, if those movies are tearjerkers for you, you'll probably like this one. It's not a bad movie, but for me, it wasn't a great movie either. I'm not saying I didn't like parts of it. I like the characters of Stella and Will, and I especially like the character of Poe. He's the best friend of Stella, and he also has cystic fibrosis. So there's characters to like in this. It's not that they're... I mean, it's like The Fault in Our Stars, where the characters that are in it, you like them. Whether or not the story being told is being told in a really compelling way, it's hit and miss. There are some things that really work. Again, with the story of the best friend Poe, he has his own side story going on where he's been in a few relationships, and all the guys he's been with, he's kind of pushed them away because he's just like, I'm afraid I'm going to leave them. What's the point of falling in love with them if I'm just going to die, right? So he has this whole side story about that, and then of course you have the main love story between Stella and Will, and the whole 5 feet apart thing comes from the rule is you have to be 6 feet apart. If two people with cystic fibrosis have to be 6 feet apart, even though the movie gets a little liberal with it at times. It's not a huge deal. But the whole thing about being 5 feet apart is Stella wants to, she's like, cystic fibrosis has taken so much from me, I'm going to take something from it. So to get closer to Will, she uses a pool cue, which is about 5 feet, and she says, you want to take an inch. We're going to steal an inch from cystic fibrosis. But see, here's the thing. That stuff's fine. It's kind of cliche. The love story is... And again, if this stuff works for you, it works for you. I've just seen it too many times, and this movie did remind me a lot of A Fault in Our Stars. It even had a thing about stars, not literal stars, but if you see the movie, you'll understand. So it had that. When things at near the end really started to get really cliche and very predictable. I mean, you find out early on, and these might be some minor spoilers, so just bear with me. I'm trying to dance around them in case you want to see it, but you find out early that the character of Will is off the organ transplant list for new lungs. But Stella's still on it. So you kind of know that sometime in the movie, new lungs are going to be available, and of course they're going to go to Stella because they're not going to go to Will, right? Because he's off the list. And so you know that's going to happen. You just know that the characters, even though they can't touch each other, they're going to be able to touch during the movie sometime for a reason, even though it could be deadly to both of them. You know, there's three ways this movie could have ended. One way, one or both of them die. Another way, somehow they miraculously can be together despite their diseases. And then the third way, one of them decides, well, we can't be together because I love you too much. And they pick what's probably the best way that it could end. I will say that, even though it's a bit cheesy, and really a lot of this movie is very cheesy. Even though, again, I'm not trying to make light of cystic fibrosis. It's just when there's movies about stuff like this, it's hard to criticize without sounding like an a-hole. Again, I'm not mocking the disease. I'm in a way mocking this movie's use of the disease. Some ways it works, some ways it's really cheesy. The best part of the movie is the friend Poe. I liked his story, honestly, a little more than the main story. And that's about it. There's really not much more to say about it. If you fell for movies like The Fault in Our Stars, you're gonna like this movie. I would recommend something like Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl more than I would this. But it's not a bad movie. It's not one I would probably ever watch again. Again, it's falling into this genre, and the term I'm finding for it is terminal romance. And that fits perfectly. I mean, there's people that are falling in love that have a chance of dying from some kind of a disease. So, I mean, terminal romance, we'll go with that. Again, if you liked Fault in Our Stars, it's not as bad as like everything that like really fell apart when, spoiler alert, the disease wasn't as bad as the mom let on. That little twist in that movie was something. This movie's not bad. It's not great. There's the way that the movie moves along. There's a problem, and one of them tries to help the other one, but while they're dealing with that problem, the one that tried to help ends up having their own problem, and the movie just kind of moves along like that. So there's a lot going on. The movie is also a little long. I think it was a little over 2 hours. I'm not sure how long it was, but it felt long, and probably could have had some stuff clipped from it. One thing I will say, though, and I could be mistaken, but this movie's PG-13. They got away with 2 F words in this movie, so I was kind of surprised at that. But yeah, it's not a terrible movie. If you dig stuff like this, you're gonna like it. It's not really my cup of tea because I feel like these movies are becoming just way too predictable, way too by the numbers, and again, there's only certain ways they can end up, and they're using the disease to garner sympathy, and which it's fine if you want to use the disease in the movie, but I'd rather see a really compelling story around the disease versus a somewhat cheesy love story. That's going to be all for this edition of Talkin Movies. If you like what you've heard here, please subscribe to the Real Geno YouTube channel, like this video, and if you have anything to say about 5 Feet Apart, please feel free to leave a comment in the section below. Until next time, I'm your host, the Real Geno, Geno Reynolds. See you later.